St. Martin Heineken Regatta's 40th edition ready to kick off this week. President of the Windward Islands Teachers Union divulges date of the Education International campaign. But first up, Prime Minister Mrs. Sylvia Jacobs gives an update on first confirmed case of coronavirus on French St. Martin. Those are the headlines for Monday, March the 2nd, 2020. This is SXM Daily News. I'm Valerie Van Putten. Now for the details. Prime Minister Mrs. Sylvia Jacobs, who is the chairman of the Emergency Operations Center on Dutch St. Martin, held a press conference on Sunday to update the community about the first confirmed case of coronavirus COVID-19 on the island. The Prime Minister activated the Emergency Operations Center, EOC, over the weekend. The Prime Minister said that the emergency center was activated because although the patients are currently on the French side, they passed through the Dutch side.
We activated the Emergency Operations Center, known as the EOC, in connection with 2 confirmed cases of the coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, on French St. Martin. The persons that have been quarantined at the hospital on the French side will remain there for 14 days. Why is this considered then an emergency for Dutch St. Martin is because we can confirm that these 2 passengers were indeed on the Dutch side and did enter through the airport on the 21st of this month of February. Yes, so they were in the Caribbean region. They traveled via France to St. Martin to get to St. Bart's. This was done via boat from St. Martin to St. Bart's, and then the same way they returned. On Friday morning, they entered St. Martin via Great Bay Marina. On the shuttle towards the airport, we can confirm where they were in contact with the general public of St. Martin. What is clear is that these 2 passengers did not exhibit any symptoms, but had been flagged due to where they had originated from. As we know, over the past week, certain areas within France and Italy have been highlighted as hotspots, you can say, and areas of concern, but had not been such when they had left France. So that is why they were not blocked from entering at that time. So now that it has been highlighted and the list has been updated by the World Health Organization to include places such as Loise, France, and places within Italy, this has been highlighted in the carriers that are coming from those regions already during this week. I must commend the cooperation between the French and Dutch authorities, police, immigration, as well as public health, who collaborated intensely on Friday to ensure that the passengers were isolated as soon as that information was made known to, at that time, St. Bart's. At this moment, the French side has confirmed that the cases remain isolated. They are not a threat to St. Martin at this time. They will be monitored for the 14 days. What is clear is that the St. Martin Dutch side, we are an open hub, and we must remain vigilant. And we are happy to see that the protocols in place are working. We know that the public is becoming riled up, as you may say, over the past week, every time there is a suspicion or a case. But we have been handling according to the protocols. Public Health is here with me, represented by epidemiologist Mrs. Eva Lista de Weaver. She will, in a few minutes, enlighten the general public as to the public health protocols that have been in place, are standard, but have been heightened over the past few weeks, and especially now since our confirmation of the 2 cases that have passed through our borders. What I must reiterate, however, is that St. Martin, Dutch side, has 0 cases that are either suspected or confirmed as having COVID-19. So that is my opening statement. We have increased We have increased or heightened travel restrictions, as I mentioned, and scrutiny in place by our main carriers. We are expanding that also to the USA and the Caribbean because we also receive many flights through those areas. Prior to this, let's say, scare, we heavily relied upon the ports of entry where the carriers were bringing in passengers, especially Europe and the USA have very stringent protocols in place in terms of questioning passengers about their countries of visitation up to 2 weeks prior to getting on a flight. So we utilize those protocols, and upon entry to St. Martin, where cases may seem to be at risk, they have been pulled out, questioned similarly, and allowed to proceed if they pass the scrutiny tests. We have also heightened our scrutiny at our ports of entry at the harbor. Health and travel protocols are already in place, and heightened awareness will be invoked where needed. Emphasis will be placed in addition to the school-going population through their respective school boards. So the Public Health Department has already been in contact over a month already, issuing statements to the schools and school boards that have to go out to parents and children, to schools particularly about heightened hygienic practices within the schools and within homes. Of course, we know that once we educate children that it can permeate the population much faster. So that will also be heightened by another letter that will be issued today from the Department of Public Health, giving admonition to the schools as to what the protocol should be, and to give pamphlets out to the parents as well during the week.
And also in attendance were the Secretary General of the Ministry of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Telecommunications, and Transport, Mr. Miguel de Weaver, Mei Ling Chung, head of the St. Martin Tourist Bureau, and Dr. Sameh Naderi, internist at the St. Martin Medical Center. Epidemiologist and head of the Collective Preventive Services, Eva Lista de Weaver, reiterated the normal process that is being followed and informed the press that Dutch St. Martin was in regular contact with French St. Martin, the St. Martin Medical Center, general practitioners, and all of the necessary stakeholders.
I just wanted to reiterate, so the normal process, as mandated by our public health legislation, is that any infectious disease is to be reported to collective prevention services. When that is reported, by whether it's by the laboratory or the physician, part of our normal process is that we follow up with the physician, gather more information, and in turn contact the patient or the cases to ensure that we get the necessary information to have an epidemiology of what transpired, how they could have gotten, the infectious disease, any travel, just try to gather the necessary information in order to make an informed decision in terms of next steps. So part of not only getting the diagnosis is making sure that they're well informed about prevention measures, what we need from them in terms of follow-up. And so that has been the usual practice over the last few years. More specifically with the COVID-19, what we've done over the past few weeks is we've met with our Friendside counterparts to assess our preparedness and response efforts and measures, and also to have a dialogue of how we normally communicate, and in this instance, if need be, how do we heighten that communication so that both parties are aware of what's happening on both sides. So it's been extremely important also for us when we are in dialogue with the friend side that we get the necessary information before we react. And so, over the past couple of weeks, it's exchanging protocols, exchanging case definitions, because the French side follows case definitions as mandated by France. We follow definitions by the Netherlands. So it's being aware of each other's case definitions and what's being used, and just ensuring, as the Prime Minister said, that we work and collaborate together for information exchange. We've also met with St. Martin Medical Center. We met with a couple of representatives from the general practitioners. We've met with our laboratory partners just to assess their readiness and to assess where, if need be, we would need to support them, and in turn, they would need to support us. We've also met with leadership from the Red Cross and WEAMS, especially for education and awareness to the public. We've also had a focus group discussion and development of our protocols or enhancement of our protocols with ports of entry. So the airport and the ports and immigration services, looking at escalating or heightening our awareness, making sure that we're all aware of our follow-up measures should a suspected case arrive on St. Martin. So I'm confident that we have that communication channel. It's pretty strong and it's well established, and we just need to, as the Prime Minister said, remain calm from an epidemiology perspective, make sure that we have all of the information that we need, whether it's signs and symptoms, whether it's travel history, but in order to gather and make proper assessments of our next steps, we need to make sure that we have the full picture before we can inform our measures appropriately.
And in more news, the cruise ship Braemar of Fred Olsen Cruise Line arrived at Port St. Martin on Sunday, and the turnaround operation commenced. A turnaround entails when one set of passengers departs the ship and another set embarks. Passengers from the vessel were in the process of being transported to the Princess Juliana International Airport, SXM Airport, where they boarded charter flights at around 8 p.m. The turnaround operation involving the Fred Olsen cruise ship Braemar can be considered a success, Port St. Martin management said on Sunday evening when the operation came to an end around 11 p.m. The turnaround operation included disembarking and embarking passengers at the Dr. A.C. Watty Cruise and Cargo Facility. The turnaround entails when one set of passengers departs the ship and another set embarks. 636 passengers disembarked, 556 embarked, 56 were in transit passengers, 4 disembarking crew members, and 380 in transit crew members. The port said that they have been working closely with the Princess Juliana International Airport, SXM Airport Operations Section, as well as the police, customs, and SXM Airport security for a seamless turnaround operation. As a port of entry catering to the cruise ship passengers, or the cruise ship market rather, where vessels carry thousands of passengers, we have a great working relationship with the country's health authorities, such as the Collective Prevention Service of the Ministry of Public Health, Social Development, and Labor. We would like to assure the maritime sector that the protocols in place have been working, and we will continue to work diligently with all stakeholders in promoting preventive hygiene measures against infectious diseases. We have protocols in place according to International Maritime Organization, IMO, guidelines. Vessels are required to present 12 hours before berthing a maritime health declaration, which is then submitted to the Ministry of Public Health, which follows international health regulations, IHR, and local health sector regulations, such as the Public Health Ordinance of St. Martin. Those protocols are in place to protect the public and our visitors from infectious diseases. Coronavirus COVID-19 infection is creating many challenges for various sectors, including shipping. But decisions taken with respect to our important cruise tourism sector are based on facts and sound medical advice. Port St. Martin management said on Sunday evening. Port St. Martin continues to work closely with the Florida Caribbean Cruise Association, the FCCA, and its cruise partners regarding the safety of cruise passengers and crew where it concerns both pre-boarding measures and on-board protocols for handling infectious diseases, many of which go above and beyond those required by U.S. Centers for Disease Control, CDC, and the World Health Organization, the WHO. The WHO have already indicated, based on current information about the virus, that there are no global travel restrictions on travel and trade. And still to come, Claire Alshot releases date of Education International campaign. We'll have the details of that story and more when SXM Daily News returns.
GEBE has been faithfully serving the communities of St. Martin, powering your home and our economy. Come rain or shine, our qualified team of professionals are working hard 24 hours a day to provide you and your family with safe, reliable electricity and water. We use the latest technologies and test our products daily to maintain the highest international standards. Our friendly staff is always there to assist you, whether in person, over the phone, or online. We are committed to constantly improving our products and services, making them more efficient, effective, and environmentally friendly to serve you better today and our next generation of clients tomorrow. GEBE, powering a brighter future.
Our friend Megawati is here with tips to save you energy. 1. Turn your airco temperature up. 2. Use a ceiling fan instead. 3. Buy energy-saving products. Save some green with NVGEBE.
President of the Windward Islands Teachers Union, Y2, Mrs. Claire Elshot, speaking to members of the media on Friday, February the 27th, 2020, divulged the date of the Education International campaign, of which St. Martin is a member. On February 24th, the Education International issued the Global Action Week program for Education 2020, whose theme is Invest in Public Education Now. Issues to be tackled includes investment in education.
Windward Islands Teachers Union is a member of Education International, and on the 24th of February, Education International issued the Global Action Week for Education 2020, and their theme is Invest in Public Education Now. Their theme is Invest in Public Education Now. That campaign would kick off basically from the 26th of April to the 2nd of May, and it will be covering the 10 years that is left to 2030, where, of course, recommendations and plans of actions to reach to the Sustainable Development Goal number 4 will be forthcoming. So in EI's roadmap, they are tackling the following issues. Invest in public education. Education must be publicly funded and regulated. States should substantially increase public investment in education and allocate at least a certain percentage of the GDP for the budget to education. Education is a human right and public good, so public authorities must protect the education sector from privatization and profit-driven corporations. Then one of the other themes that they are going to explore is invest in teachers. Government should significantly increase investment in the recruitment, training, professional development, and retention of teachers and education support personnel. That is very important, the retention of these persons in order to meet the global shortage. The global shortage right now is at 69 million teachers is needed to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal number 4, and to ensure that every child is taught by a qualified teacher. Government must also ensure decent salaries and working conditions determined through general dialogue. So instead of our government looking at the salaries and the issues that have been brought up by the Y2 about the salaries, the freezing of the salaries at step 20 in the scales, instead of them looking at, for example, the quality of education. Right now, the repairs, you can tell me so much about your challenges, but it is the obligation of the government to make sure that teachers can teach in a occupational, healthy, and safety environment.
Now turning to our local weather forecast. A weak Atlantic high pressure ridge will continue to dominate the weather pattern across the region. Consequently, winds will be light to moderate and precipitation will be restricted during this forecast period. A slight to moderate seas are expected with waves peaking near 6 feet. Now let's turn to your 3-day forecast. And still to come, members of Parliament request answers from Minister of Justice. You'll have the details of that story and more when SXM Daily News returns.
Make use of WIB mobile banking with easy access and direct usage of face recognition, PIN code, or fingerprint. Download WIB mobile banking app and make your transaction from anywhere at any time. For more information, visit wib-bank.net/quick-login.
And now in more news, members of Parliament still in discussion about the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force posed several questions to the Minister of Justice about several issues, including former President of the Central Bank, Dr. Ainsley Trump's meeting with the U.S. Treasury about these laws. Mrs. Heiliger Martin wanted clarification. Member of Parliament Melissa Gums questioned whether there were any other recommendations coming from the CAFTF, or can we expect another body or the establishment of another gaming board. Another Member of Parliament, Dr. Anders Rodolph Samuel, questioned whether we were up to date and if we are online with everybody. And then Member of Parliament in the opposition, Mrs. Sarah Westcott Williams, wanted to know about the letter that was sent out on December the 11th, 2019. The Honorable Minister of Justice, Honorable Ekba Doran, then requested a week for him to gather the information to be able to have factual information.
Is the minister aware that the former head of the central bank, Dr. Trump, he had a meeting with the U.S. Treasury to discuss these laws? If you're not aware, can you find out then what the outcome was and follow up on those conversations? How will this affect St. Martin? Now that the Brexit law has gone through, will this also affect how these laws are governed in our competing islands? And what does the penal code have to do with the CF-ATF laws? I feel like we're mixing apples and pears. I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong. And lastly, my last question to you, through Mr. Chair. Blacklisted, what does it mean for St. Martin? Has other countries been blacklisted? What are the ramifications? What does it mean for St. Martin to be blacklisted? I would like to know the details of that.
In my experience in my professional career, I've worked for a trust company that had to adhere to many regulations such as this, and pending FATCA laws as well. As I understand it, for a country, even when it comes to the UBO, were there any other recommendations coming from CF-ATF, or can we expect that they recommend or another body recommends that we establish, for example, a gaming board? Because it's not just offshore banking, as we know, that has its purview in money laundering. So that is something that I would like to ask to you, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the Minister. Is there anything else that we can expect coming from CF-ATF along the lines of establishing, for example, a gaming authority?
My question is, if we had everything up to date, where would we be at this moment? And what do we have to do in order to be in line with everybody? So let us say that if everybody is on round 4, what else do we have to do in order to be up to date? Because St. Martin seems to have a little backlog, And if we were to work the backlog, what all do we need to do in order to be up to date, to work away the backlog for St. Martin?
Minister, on the 11th of December 2019, our number 409, so IS 409, you wrote to the Parliament inter alia the following in your letter. The letter having to do with your request to discuss the proposed draft penal procedure code for St. Martin, and at that time to postpone the meeting that we were supposed to have in December. You asked for it to be postponed. And you say in your letter the following: the mutual evaluation by the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force, CFATF, on St. Martin in 2012, with the report published in 2013, brought to light that some essential sections, and I need to get clarity on the following part of your letter, that some essential sections would need to be included in our penal procedure code in order for St. Martin to comply with international standards in the area of anti-money laundering and the combating of financing of terrorism.
Well, members, thank you for your questions posed. Mr. Chairman, after careful consideration and deliberation in the conference room, I've decided to take more than 30 minutes and come back with a more elucidated explanation as to where we are and how we got here, so that those new members of Parliament can make an informed decision, as they rightfully stated as well. And I would request about a week to get back with all the answers and have factual information instead of leaving things open in the air for interpretation.
And still to come, Heineken Regatta's 40th edition kicks off this week. You'll have the details of that story and more with SXM Daily News returns.
Hello, St. Martin. My name is Jose Helaga and I play basketball. I have organized basketball events in St. Martin. Sport matters to me because it makes everybody come together in unity. So I challenge the businesses community to step up for sports and help us rebuild and repair our facility. I'm also asking the community to nominate local businesses in your area to take on the challenge and step up for sport because sports matter. Check out the Department of Sports SXM Facebook page for more information. #SportMatter, #AreYouIn.
The 40th edition of the St. Martin Heineken Regatta runs a full week of activities at the Regatta Village with performances from more than 20 local bands, dance groups and DJs, which will undoubtedly bring some cultural flair to the event. The village opens officially this evening, Monday, March 2nd at 6 p.m. and will close its doors on the 2020 edition of the evening of March the 8th, 2020. Patrons to the event will find food and drinks, regatta merchandise, and variety of other goods in the Echo Art Park. Headliners include international artists, Grandmaster Flash, and Florida. Tuesday's schedule starts with performances from 12 to 2 p.m. by Sweet Pan Entertainment, which consists of 7 band members who enjoy performing a range of music, including reggae, zouk, hip-hop, soca, R&B, and even some jazz. I'm Valerie Van Putten. Just a reminder that this and other programs are available online. Simply log on to stmartinmediacenter.com for viewing. And on behalf of the SXM Daily News team, we thank you for watching and plan on meeting you back here again tomorrow.